James the Red Engine was a mixed traffic engine on Sodor. He was painted red and was very proud of this fact. He was very boastful about it. Sometimes his boastfulness would get him into trouble, but like all the engines, he strived to be really useful and really reliable. One morning, the Fat Controller came to the yards. "I'm giving a visiting engine a trial. He's going to be purchased for the Harwick line, but his new controller wants to see how he fares on the Tismouth line. So, James, he's mixed traffic like you. Show him the ropes." "Of course, sir," replied James. James was shunting trucks at Brendam when an unfamiliar whistle rang out, and a red tender engine pulled into the yards. He eyed his surroundings before looking at James. "Oh, hello. I'm supposed to be meeting an engine named James." "Well, you just found him. Welcome to Sodor, "Samuel," said the engine. "Glad to be here. What needs doing?" Samuel said excitedly.
"Well, we could start by shunting those coal trucks and taking them to the coal mines. They're needed to refuel the bunkers around the island,"
said James. "Well, let's get to it," smiled Samuel. James was surprised at how fast Samuel was learning. He joked and laughed with James and made the work seem like fun. They brought the empty trucks to the coal mines and began loading them under the hopper. On the line next to them was Thomas and Percy doing the same thing. Thomas and Percy were teasing James as the black coal dust covered his bright red paint. "You look like a dirty popsicle," said Thomas, snickering. James scowled.
"Or a rusty red fire hydrant,"
said Percy. Both the engines started snickering really loudly.
"Oh, those two," said James. "Cheeky and annoying. One of these days I'll do something."
"Why don't you?" said Samuel, smirking. "See them there? They're one truck away from the hopper."
Pardon?"
asked James. "Take your revenge now and be done with it. Let them learn a lesson in manners," said Samuel. "One good shove should do, and watch them get covered in coal," said Samuel. "You know you want to." James looked at Thomas. He was one truck away from being underneath the hopper. He of course wanted to enact some kind of revenge, as Samuel put it, but he stopped himself. He knew it was irresponsible and wrong to do so.
No, we got bigger things to do," said James
to Samuel.
"And besides that wouldn't really be useful of us."
"Very well then," simmered Samuel. "What's next?" James and Samuel took the loaded coal trucks to where Henry was waiting for them at the station. As James and Samuel arrived, Henry was waiting impatiently. "You're late," said Henry annoyed.
"Sorry, Henry, had a bit of a delay at the mines. Here's the coal bunker train for you."
Henry sort of eyed the train, and he sniffed. "Whew! You smell like the docks at a campfire. You can't show up to the station without one bath," said Henry crossly. Henry really didn't mean it. He was only in a bit of a foul mood because he wasn't feeling well. "How do you let them talk to you like that?" whispered Samuel.
"Huh?"
said James. He was both annoyed and cross. "Makes you want to do something about that loudmouth green oaf. You trip the signal now and switch the tracks, and he'll derail the moment he takes off," suggested Samuel.
"But that's not..."
"Wrong. It'll teach them a lesson they'll never forget," said Samuel, deviously. "Now's your chance," he said, oily. James was torn between doing wrong and right. He suggested the latter.
"No, that's not how we do things here,"
said James. James and Samuel arrived at Brendam to take a train to Scrap to the foundry, their second to last stop together. They puffed their way across the island. James questioned the red engine on their journey.
"Why do you suggest I take confrontational action when someone frustrates me?" asked James.
"Call it advice," stated Samuel. "I love helping others, and no one should store their anger or feelings like that. It feels good to get it out."
"But the way you're doing it is wrong," said James.
"It may be wrong, But the reason you're feeling that way is because someone did wrong to you, replied Samuel. The two engines brought the train of scrap to the scrapyard. Ari and Bert, the diesel shunter twins, began dividing up the trucks. James was resting on the siding, waiting for his train of empty trucks to be shunted behind him. Ari, in a devious and mischievous manner, shunted an empty truck right behind James, but he stopped. The truck flew forwards and crashed into James' tender. It gave him a bump.
Oh!
Yelped James. "Oh, sorry. Forgot you were there," said Harry. He snickered. James lost patience.
"Watch where you're shunting those trucks!"
he yelled angrily. He watched Harry begin collecting the empty trucks and organize them into a line. Samuel whispered to James again. "You see that set of buffers?" he said, motioning to where Harry was. "They're old and dry-rotted. One good shove would send that toaster on wheels right through into that pile of scrap. Let your emotions out. Tell them how you feel about getting bumped with trucks." James was already fuming after what Harry had done.
"You're right," said James. "Enough is enough. No more Mr. Nice Engine."
James shunted himself behind Harry, who was coupling up to some empty trucks in the siding. James eyed him carefully, but was hesitant to make a move. "Do it," said Samuel aggressively. James was about to move forwards, but he stopped himself and quickly backed out of the siding.
No. Really useful engines don't solve anything by doing this,"
said James. James and Samuel then took their empty trucks back to Brendam. It was time for the late passenger trains. Samuel was told to shunt the local single-axle coaches to the platform for Edward, while James shunted the large passenger coaches for Gordon. James smiled as he backed them down onto the platform.
"Oh, it would be lovely if I got to take the nightly passenger trains,"
said James. Samuel spoke up again. "Here's your chance. I'll tamper with the roundhouse so Gordon won't be able to leave, and you can pull the train, James." James frowned, but stood his ground.
"Absolutely not. Why don't you just shut up? The whole day you've been trying to get me to do something bad or something that would hurt someone. Who do you think you are?"
"James?" said a voice. The voice belonged to Edward. He backed down onto his local train. "Who are you talking to?"
"That new engine, Samuel. He kept making suggestions about hurting you and the others on the island over just some mildly infuriating occurrences."
"Well, that's odd," said Edward.
"Why's that?"
asked James. "Because the new engine just arrived at Brendam. He's been looking for you. His name's Roger. You better hurry. You don't want to keep the Fat Controller waiting," said Edward.
"Wait a minute. If he just arrived, then who was I?"
James looked all over the station yards. The red engine Samuel was nowhere to be found.
"What? What's going on?"
"Better get a move on, James," stated Edward.
Oh, right,"
said James, who was really confused. James puffed his way to Brendam. He was deep in his thoughts about the strange engine Samuel. Suddenly it occurred to him that only he himself was interacting with him. Nobody ever noticed Samuel's presence, even though if he was right there. He also thought about all the bad advice Samuel was giving him, and how he refused to carry out such acts. He seemed like a wiser engine now. As James puffed down the line, unbeknownst to him, lingering in the shadows from behind, was the shadow of a large tender engine. "Almost got him," the figure said with a smirk. "Sometimes temptations taste so sweet."